Hello, it's me again, back for another video. I want to talk about something that I was gonna talk about, but I didn't have time. I was dealing with life and stuff. So what I'm trying to tell you is that talk about is I'm here to talk about um Cesar Chavez. Okay, I feel that what we saw with Cesar Chavez is a little bit hypocritical. Yeah, what he was accused of doing is not right. Here is a issue that is very complex because people see things differently. He died in April of 1993, so he died almost 33 years after before the accusations came out. March 2026, right before his birthday, March 31st, 2 weeks around St. Patrick's. The New York Times or New York Times revealed what he did with those women, girls, and Dolores Huerta. I heard a lot of opinions about this. How come Cesar Chavez had his legacy almost erased, while we have someone who's worse than that, did sexual crimes and worse, is our head of state? Someone asking me to answer that question, because I'm sick and tired of this hypocritical country we have. Yeah, Trump did more than sexual. Yeah, he touched girls, he touched little boys, he touched grown women, he touched everybody. But at least Cesar Chavez didn't do financial crime, white collar crime, laundering money, fraud, tax evasion, treason. He wasn't racist. He wasn't this and that. And yeah, this is what I have to say about Cesar Chavez. I believe those women did not come forward in the 60s and 70s because who is going to trust a brown girl? Police have elements of racism. Do you think? Look at it this way. If I was a young Chicana girl in the 60s and 70s and I said Chavez did X, Y, and Z to me, here's what's going to happen. They'll get brushed off because sexual assault was not taken seriously, SA was not taken seriously. Or the second thing that would have happened was, well, this is complex. He wasn't liked. A lot of people on the right did not like Cesar Chavez because of how he stood up to the agro business. You feel me? And then they would have said, okay, arrest him immediately. Then they would have said, oh, do you have any proof? Or, And another thing, these women, you have to look at the 60s and 70s. That was the height of the Chicano era and the farm workers movement. If you were a young girl and you said, oh, he did that to me, you would have been seen as a traitor. You would have been seen as a dirty girl. You betrayed the farm worker movement and the Chicano movement. And all Mexicans and even all Latinos will say you're a traitor. Because we have to look at Mexican culture. In Mexican culture, right when they were being colonized by the Spanish, there was this lady who was a translator. She spoke Nahuatl and Maya, and then she translated it to the Spanish conquistadors in Spanish or something. Her name was like La Malinche. Okay, she was a traitor because she betrayed Mexico for Spain. And you're a woman and you're a Chicana, they would have compared her to La Malinche. I think that was her name, La Malinche, the crying lady who betrayed Mexico for Spain. Yeah. And then another thing is this. She betrayed. Now, the people who are saying why didn't she come forward in this day, come forward in the 60s and 70s, they would have, if she did come forward, they would have been accused of betraying the Chicano community, the Chicano movement, the farm workers movement, Latinos and Mexicans in general. They would have been seen as traitors. However, and also you have to understand, when people face SA, they don't come out after decades because it's traumatic. That's what we saw with Bill Cosby in 2014. Bill Cosby is very much like Cesar Chavez. There are beef icons and legends who became SA allegations and drugging and all those things ruined their legacy. But at least for Bill Cosby, look at it this way. When he was accused of doing his crimes, it was 50, 40, 30 years earlier, 20 years earlier, he was still alive. So hey, he could um, it could he was still alive to defend himself and face trial. When you are accused of something like SA, being a serial SAer, you can be tried in a court of law because you're physically still alive. Cesar Chavez couldn't do that because he passed away about 33 years ago. He died in 1993 at age 66. Didn't live that long. All the murals, all that stuff. Well, look at it this way. There's a street in San Francisco named Cesar Chavez Street. It'll go back to Army Street. I know this because I used to go to Between Brothers at that Rafiki thing near Hunters Point. It's called Cesar Chavez Street. There's a Stockton, California has a Cesar Chavez library. I think Oakland in the Fruitvale they have a Cesar Chavez library. So here's the problem with you don't glorify people like this. In the Chicano community, Cesar Chavez is legendary. Maybe not just Chicanos, Mexican Americans, maybe Latinos in general. When you say Cesar Chavez, oh my, Latinos, they will love it. Cesar Chavez, viva la raza, viva la causa. Now you say Cesar Chavez, like no. Now you feel me? It's just it's when your legacy is destroyed like that, people are traumatized. People are. I was on all the YouTube videos, at least 20, where they were talking about Cesar Chavez. I was commenting, and I'm from California. I'm from Northern California, like Bay Area, like feel me, like Central out there. Oh my! I think in different parts of California, he means in different states where there's a large Chicano population, like Texas, New Mexico, places like that, he's seen differently. Another thing that you have to realize with the Cesar Chavez situation is that he was very politically, he did not like illegal immigration, one, and people may not know this, but he supported the Ferdinand Marcos dictatorship in the Philippines. Now, there are also Filipinos who did this with Mexican Americans, Chicanos. How do Filipinos feel about Cesar Chavez? A lot of people don't know who Larry Itliong was. Larry Itliong was this Filipino-American farm worker who worked alongside Cesar Chavez, but for whatever reason, people only know Chavez and Huerta and not Itliong. But in Stockton, a large Filipino population, they know who Larry Itliong is. Now check this out. Okay? The Democrats, it was looked at as a political hit job. Rightfully so. So the Democrats, who are pro-immigration, and the Cesar Chavez, who was anti-immigration, if this came out that he did that, now they can say, good, Chavez was a bad person. People on the right were accusing people of the left for trashing Cesar Chavez because of his stance on illegal immigration, so that the right wing was calling the left wing hypocrites. Right wing calling left wing hypocrites. Right wing shouldn't call nobody hypocrites. You voted for a child pedophile, chomo, traitor, con artist, con man, racist, rapist, and you have no right to call nobody nothing. Right wing. You better fix your room before you clean someone else's. Don't throw rocks when you live in a glass house. Get the log out of your eye before you get the twig out of someone else's. These are all legitimate. Me, look at it right now. Jermaine Jackson is being sued for what he did in 1988 to a woman. And I heard Berry Gordy knew about it. 1988. What else? Russell Simmons was accused of doing that in 1991. He fled to Bali, Indonesia. Of course he did it. Why are you going to fly to Bali, Indonesia, which has no extradition treaty with the United States? Why didn't you go to England? Because you know they'll come right back across the pond. Why didn't you go to Nigeria? Because you have to come right back. Why didn't you go to Brazil? Because you have to come right back. You went to Bali, Indonesia. You have the means to search where can I go where there's no extradition. So Russell Simmons is eventually going to have to face the music. P. Diddy, whoever Diddy, or R. Kelly, or Bill Cosby, or Harvey Weinstein, and the whole nine. Oh, Masterson, Danny Masterson, 70s show. Now, I am a man, so I don't think I have not going to be respectful if I say, why didn't that woman come early? Why didn't it? Because that's not fair for me to say it, because I don't know how it feels to be treated like that, because I'm not a woman. I mean, it's really condescending if I say, oh, you should have reported your abuser when it happened. Here's what I have to say about this. That's traumatic. It takes years. So one of the women who accused Cosby said she did that to him in 1969, and it was 2014. So for 45 years, from 1969 to 2014, she either didn't tell anybody, told a few people, confidential, and then Now another thing with stuff like this is like this. A lot of men were Me Too'd. And another thing with Cesar Chavez is, yeah, his legacy took a hit, or it's completely destroyed. They changed his name from Cesar Chavez Day to Farm Workers Day. Again, this is why you don't honor people like that. The building at some college was called Hastings Building. They took it off because he was responsible for genocide against indigenous Californians, so it's no longer the Hastings Building. And then another one is Woodrow Wilson's name was taken off at Princeton because he was super racist, and rightfully so. And then you had all those Confederates were taking monuments, statues were taken down, and you had that Roger Tanner guy, or whatever his name is, who said that Dred Scott decision said the Negro has no rights in which a white man is bound to respect. They took out his statue. Now, what about all the streets named Washington, Jackson, Jefferson? See? And it's what? The 250th anniversary? Okay, in Oakland, you have a street named after General George Washington, a street named after Major General Andrew Jackson, a street named after Thomas Jefferson. What did they do with their slaves? Not only did they own slaves, they SA'd their slaves, especially Jefferson. I don't know if Andrew Jackson slept with his slaves, but even if he didn't, he still owned slaves, and he did the genocide against indigenous people. Okay, so what it is selective outrage. It is what it is. So, one more thing. What about J. Edgar Hoover? We should not name nothing after him. He harassed Dr. King. He harassed these black freedom fighters, these black civil rights icons. Maybe they'll have to take his name off. We changed the Redskins to the Commanders. We changed the Indians to the Guardians. We changed all these things because nothing wrong with a PC society. It's just, I feel that we really have to realize what we're naming things after people, because if it comes out that they did something shady back in the day, it's gonna cost money. Painting over a mural doesn't cost anything. Changing a street name. All the businesses on that street, what do they have to do? When in 1995, when 2 years after Chavez passed, and they said we're gonna train San Francisco, going to change Army Streets to Cesar Chavez. Okay, what happened? People, I didn't ask. Why didn't you come out that he did that when he died in '93? You could have come out. It's because 1992 was Year of the Woman, right? With the whole thing with Clarence Thomas and Anita Hill in 1991. 1992, you could say there could have been a Me Too movement in 1992 and not 2017. Why 2017? It could have been 1992. Said, this man touched me. This man did this to me. This man looked at me. This man groped me. This man this. Why did you do it in 2017? What about 1992, which was the Year of the Woman? Or maybe society wasn't ready. Then, right then and there, they could have said, in the 60s and 70s, Chavez did this. He could have been alive to face consequences. Now, with women taking certain men who were SA too, it's not just women. It's Tyler Perry. Tyler Perry was accused by a man of doing something to him. Donnie McClurkin, the gospel singer, pastor, he was accused of doing something to a man. Eddie Long, Bishop Eddie Long. Bishop Eddie Long was what was he? He abused boys sexually when they were underage and bought them things to bribe them, and for years he spoke against homosexuality and that's a different video for a different day. So I was thinking about whether or not I should talk talk about the Africa Bambatta. I'm gonna talk about Africa Bambatta too. Africa Bambatta, as you know, died in April 2026. He was a hip hop founding fathers of hip hop, you can say, with Planet Rock and Soul Sonic Force and Looking for a Perfect Beat. It was April 2016, the same month Prince died. A shocking allegation came to light that somebody stated that he molested boys back in the day. So they call that hip hop's greatest secret was that Africa Bambatta, also known as Lance Taylor, was molesting boys. Okay, here's my thing. If you knew he was molesting boys, why didn't you go to the authorities? Like, okay, so you seen him, you heard about it, you saw how he acted, and what did you do? What did you do? You sat by and said, "Oh." So 2016 was 30 years, 40 years after he was doing this, and you did nothing. You sat idly by and did nothing. But there's dynamics. New York has this weird relationship with LGBTQ people. Weird? Here's why I say weird. New York is progressive. However, New York has a very large Caribbean population. And what is the Caribbean? They're homophobic. They don't like LGBTQ. They're homophobic. They're transphobic. I don't know which specific islands. Jamaicans, especially, are stereotypically homophobic. Bahamians, all the I don't know if it's the English-speaking countries or the French-speaking Caribbean countries or the Spanish. I think all of them are. So with this being said, homophobia plays a role when it's a man touching a man. If it is a woman doing that to a man, people say, "Oh, he's lucky. The boy's lucky." If it's a man doing that to a man, now that's emasculating. People say, "Oh, you got down like that. You like it like that. You like men." Of course, you're not gonna say this man is touching me because he's a hip hop pioneer and legend. And you can say, African Bambatta, people will make fun of you. So this is the problem here. New York City is progressive when it comes to LGBTQ issues, but there's a large Caribbean population, and they're notoriously homophobic. So Lance Taylor, aka Africa Bambatta, used that to his advantage. Right? Said, "Oh, they're not going to tell on me because there's a stigma and a taboo towards homosexuality." That's what I think happened. So he died exactly 10 years after the accusations came to light, and no one really cared. I mean, so that's what it is. So when it comes to this type of incident with abuse, sexual abuse, yeah, there's different dynamics. So I was going to talk about Africa Bambatta on a different video. I decided to combine it here. So that's what I'm going to talk about.